The naval battle of Valparaíso, fought on March 28, 1814, was a dramatic engagement during the War of 1812, in which the American frigate USS Essex, under the command of Captain David Porter, faced off against two British warships, HMS Phoebe and HMS Cherub, off the coast of Valparaíso, Chile. Was one of the most remarkable naval battles of the war, taking place thousands of miles from North America and marked the end of one of the most daring American naval cruises of the age. In early 1813, Captain Porter sailed the Essex around Cape Horn and into the Pacific Ocean, the first U.S. warship to do so in wartime. Once in the Pacific, he began a widely successful campaign against the British whaling fleet, capturing and destroying more than a dozen vessels. Among his prizes was the British whaler Atlantic, which Porter refitted and armed, commissioning her as the USS Essex Junior, under the command of Lieutenant John Downes. Though lightly armed, the Essex Junior served as a tender and auxiliary support vessel, playing a key logistical role in the campaign. By early 1814, Porter had anchored at the neutral port of Valparaíso in Chile, to repair and resupply. It was here that the British frigate HMS Phoebe, commanded by Captain James Hillier, and the sloop HMS Cherub arrived and began a blockade. Porter, whose Essex was armed mainly with short-range carronades, knew he would be outgunned at a distance. He hoped to stay within the protection of the neutrality laws, but the British waited patiently for an opportunity to strike. That opportunity came March 28, 1814, when a sudden squall snapped Essex's main topmast. Attempting to escape, the damaged Essex struggled to maneuver and drifted outside the harbor. The British seized their chance and closed in. With no wind to return to safety and facing two well-armed British ships, Porter was forced to engage. The ensuing battle lasted for over 2 hours. The Phoebe and Cherub kept their distance and pounded the Essex with long-range guns. The Essex, unable to close the gap and bring her carronades into effective range, suffered heavy damage. According to Captain Porter's journal and the U.S. Navy records, fire broke out aboard, the decks were slick with blood, and still the Americans fought on. Despite mounting casualties and a crippled ship, they refused to surrender. Nearby, the Essex Junior, which was lightly armed but not built for combat, attempted to assist but could not meaningfully engage against the superior firepower of the British warships. Eventually, with his ship ablaze and over 120 men killed or wounded, Porter struck his colors to save the remainder of his crew. The Essex Junior was captured alongside the Essex. The British later allowed her to be used as a cartel ship, a non-combatant vessel used to carry prisoners, and she carried Porter and his surviving crew back to the United States. The battle was a devastating loss, but it captured the public's imagination. Even the British historian William James, known for his critical stance toward American commanders, praised Porter's resistance. Young David Glasgow Farragut, a midshipman aboard the Essex, survived the battle, who would later become the US Navy's first admiral. For this battle, we are again using our house rules, which is a version of the Black Seas rule set by Warlord Games. What is changed is that we've tweaked the ship stats and prices a bit to fit what we like better. We also added a couple of new ship types. We have added another way of measuring when you critical hit, taking into account the caliber of guns and also the range. Also, we are using the quick sheets by Modeler Phil, which had a couple of rules added to them already, and we've tweaked those rules as well. So a couple of rules about advanced sailing and so on, grappling and boarding working a little bit different. Couple of things different with those sheets. I've shown them in several videos, so I'm not going to show them in this one. You can look at earlier videos if you want to see how they look. The battle was set up as close as we could figure to the real encounter. So barring what we have, CMAT and so on. So this was played on a 8 by 4 CMAT with a strip of land at one of the short edges of the table, and the wind set up so that it was blowing kinda like it did in the historical account, as far as I found in the sources anyway, with the wind blowing to the southwest. This gave the Essex a little bit of an advantage. We did not decide to remove any mast points and so on from the Essex. The ship starts as they are. The Essex is a veteran ship and also a famous ship with a couple of special abilities. We tweaked the stats from the Waller games also of the Essex to fit a little bit better with the historical stats. And the historical stats are as follows. HMS Phoebe, length 43.5 meters, beam 11.7 meters, tonnage 926 tons, complement 264 men, armament 26 18-pounder long guns, 10 32-pounder carronades, 10 9-pounder long guns, broadside weight 206 kilos. USS Essex, length 42.2 meters, beam 11.4 meters, weight 897 tons, crew 260 men, armament 40 32-pounder carronades, 6 12-pounder long guns, broadside weight 301 kilos. HMS Cherub, length 33 meters, beam 9 meters, tonnage 423 tons, complement 121 men, armament 16 32-pounder carronades, 8 12-pounder carronades, 2 6-pounder long guns, broadside weight 138 kilos. USS Essex Junior, length and beam unknown, tonnage 378 tons, complement 60 men, armament 10 18-pounder carronades and 10 6-pounder long guns, broadside weight 54 kilos. So going from that, the Essex ended up with, instead of 3, it had 4 carronades. And that's the only thing we changed on the Essex. The Phoebe ended up with 3 heavy guns instead of 2, to mark her 18-pounder armament. She had quite a few of those. And also to fit more with the stats, so we could change the stats a little bit on the smaller ships as well. And then we had the Cherub, which was mainly armed with carronades, so that's what she ended up with in this as well. 2 carronades, because she has had 2 6-pounder long guns. I mean, we couldn't really represent that. I guess we could have given her 1 long gun, but then she would have been a little bit overarmed. So 2 carronades it was, and then the Essex Junior got 1 carronade and 1 long gun, a light gun, and that's because she had 10 carronades and 10 6-pounder long guns. So we tried to match the stats within the frames of Waller games, the Black Seas, to fit the historical ships a bit. As far as ship points goes, the Phoebe is a standard 5th rate. She has 36 ship points. The Essex Junior is a small brig, 18 ship points. And the Cherub is a corvette or a sloop-of-war, which has 24 ship points. And then the Essex had 45 ship points. And it's a smaller frigate, but the Americans, they tended to build their frigates really solid for this type of engagement, so that's why we ended up having a little bit of a heavier armament, or heavier more ship points on the Essex. That's also wasn't changed from the original game rules. We also decided for the British, since we had 2 captains, one for the Phoebe and one for the Cherub, that we were going to try using our signaling system, not ours, but the signaling system that we have with the flags and so on. So you will see that as in this battle report as we're hoisting different flags. That was actually a lot of fun, both the players, that was me and my friend. We played the British. We really enjoyed that. We weren't allowed to communicate about the battle except for using hoists. So I think in the future that's something we're going to use for all our battles, because when we're more players on one side, because it just added another dimension of fun to the actual battle. Marcus, that played the US ship, he were controlling both, so he wasn't signaling to himself. But it was a fun system, and I'm going to go a little bit more into detail on that system right now. So the system is called Hoist Signals Aloft, and basically what we have here is we have a representation of a ship with 3 masts. And depending on the strength of the commander, he will be able to hoist a certain number of signals. And we decided ahead of the battle that the commander of the Phoebe, which is James Hilliard, he would be able to raise 4 flags. And a signal usually contains 2 flags, so 2 different signals, while the Cherub would only be able to hoist 1 signal. And also the larger frigate would be in overall command. And so you decide in advance, as you can see here on the list, you give a number to a certain signal, and then it will correspond to a certain type of flags. And we also decided that we wouldn't have to know all the signals in our head. We would have the signal book, so you could check the signal. But then exactly, since it's a little bit limited, exactly what the commander wants is not clear. So there was a couple of times where we had a little bit of like we didn't really understand each other, but that was the whole point. So all in all, I really recommend this Hoist Signals Aloft system. It is a lot of fun, and all I did here is I printed out a picture of a frigate. It's actually a French one on this one, but it was very clear with the masts, and then you could like hoist your signals on different masts. So you start with the main, then you go to the mizzen, and then if you need another signal, you'll go on the fore, I guess. So that's how that signaling system worked out. So we're on turn 3 here, and I'm going to be speeding up the video from now on, so we'll be playing it at 2.5 times the speed. What you watched while I was talking about the other stuff was the 2 first rounds, and something significant that did happen during those 2 first rounds is that the wind turned, blowing straight to the south on the turn 2. This change happened, and that changed a lot of the plans, and also we talked about this after, but so it changed some of the plans for the Marcus, who played the American vessels, US vessels. So he had to rethink his plan and come up with something different. So and that happens in these games, that the wind turns. That happens also in Beat the Quarters, but there you just roll every 10 turns, right? But in Warlord games, the Black Seas, it could happen any turn. So you just need to keep that in your plans a little bit, that thing can happen. As you can see here, we have this sea mat. We really like it. We have another one from the same maker. It's from War Sigil. I'm going to make a little video just about the mats at some point here. But this one is a modular map, so we could add some coastline and so on. Let's see, we've done that on this one. A little island with lighthouse, and then a little town at the back too. Represent Valparaíso. And here we have the initial first broadside of HMS Cherub, firing on USS Essex. She was ordered to engage the enemy's rear. So the player who was playing Cherub really didn't understand my signal fully. Of course, he had engaged the rear of Essex, but I wanted him to engage Essex Junior. That was my plan. But since we weren't allowed to communicate with anything but the hoists, so this is one of the things that did happen. The fire was inside of 10 but outside of 3, and he has had 2 coronades. They didn't end up doing very much damage for this initial process. There was some damage done, I think 5 points or something, and Essex has 45 initially. So here we have the Phoebe moving up. We are still on round 3, and Phoebe is moving last, since she has the other ships has the weather gauge on her. She's the one furthest to the south. and I had a plan here playing Phoebe. I was thinking I was going to play it like the real thing, so trying to stay just outside of 8-inch air range to stay out to the range of the carronades of the Essex, which was very heavy broadside. 4 of them close by would be devastating. So here I'm firing my initial broadside at just inside 10 inches. Worked out pretty nicely, and I did a bit of damage. I think there was 10 points of damage scored, which is pretty good at this distance. Initial broadside, of course, a medium ship has another light and another heavy, and so I had 4 heavy cannons and 2 light. I couldn't use my carronades, so but most of them scored hits. There was a also I was firing this first time. I just fired at the hull, but further on, as you see, I'll be firing at I'll be aiming high with the additional -2 modifier to your shooting, and that's because I wanted to see if I could dismast the Essex, so slow her down to let the Cherub catch up. Okay, so we're on turn 4, and this is the situation on turn 4. So far the Essex Junior is unengaged, and she also has the weather gauge, so she's moving first. Of course, the main goal of the American ships here is supposed to be just to leave the map on the western side. So they're trying to, the short end there, so they're trying to get out of the bay here, or get out of Valparaíso and out into open water. And then that's the main plan. And here Essex is maneuvering, and it's just outside of the carronade range, so this is going to be a little bit weaker initial broadside, and so she's firing, since the system is how it is, you get another heavy and then another light gun when you're firing your initial broadside. So she's firing 2 light guns and 1 heavy gun, since the carronades are at the range. And yeah, the game is a lot of maneuvering, and we do have those 2 rules, which are a little bit different than in the original rules for Warlord games, the Black Seas, which is the tacking and the wearing. We did discuss it, so we do have a skill test for wearing, of course, and a skill test for tacking, and you're not allowed to shoot while you're making those maneuvers. Actually, we think we're going to change that for wearing. Wearing, you're just turning with the wind in your at your back, so it's not a very special maneuver. So you probably should be allowed to fire, and you shouldn't have to make a skill test just to make a wear maneuver. You just declare that you're wearing, and that's probably what we're going to do from now on. However, the rules were there for this battle, so there's a skill test involved. And here HMS Cherub decided to perform a tacking maneuver. Of course, she's at light sails, so it's going to be a 2-turn maneuver. So she'll be making the turn. We forgot some of the turns initially, but then we make the complete thing. Sometimes we read the rules a little bit wrong, the house rules that we made. But she's not allowed to set any higher sail than she had for the next round either, so she's be coming out of the maneuver at light sails. And I decided to wear the Phoebe, so I'm also making a skill test, and I succeeded with that. And so I'll be turning with the wind at my back and turning over towards the west, trying to catch up with the Essex here as she's passing to the west. And this maneuver was done at battle sails. You're not allowed to do the maneuver, the wear or the attacking maneuvers at full sails. Maybe the situation on after this turn. Pretty dynamic, as usual, playing with this gentleman. It's also the people that I play these ship games with. It's also the people I fence. I do historical European martial arts, mostly British military swordsmanship, saber, and these are the same people I do that with, that have a common interest in sea battles. So it's a lot of fun. Also, I should mention that both Essex Junior, which is actually the model of the Fair American brig, which is a much earlier brig, and the Essex, which is from Waller Games, the Waller Game model of it, are commissions. So, and I asked, and the buyer was gracious enough to let me lend the models I actually painted for him before I ship him off to play out this little encounter, historical encounter. So turn 5, and here we're trying to figure out the stuff that we forgot the last turn with the maneuvering. The Essex has already taken a little bit of damage. I mean, none of these ships, even if the Essex have the heavier hull, she is not one of those really large frigates, the American super frigates. So she has the 45 ship points, but that it can quickly wear down if you get fired on a lot. So she's already taken a little bit of damage. And also, I forgot to say that there was a critical hit scored. It didn't do anything much. It was a quarterdeck hit, I think. So she would be failing any skill tests that she would needed to make for one round. But there was a critical hit scored. The US player is just trying to disengage at this point, trying to cut the head of the British ship. Also, I signaled to Björn, who is playing the Cherub. At this point, I signaled to him to engage the enemy more closely, and since he was left behind after his tacking maneuver, having to try to accelerate up. And it's very funny because we had one in the signal put where we didn't fill anything in. You can put in your own orders in that line, and it's just dots, like dot, 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 dot. And that was his answer. So I told him to engage the enemy more closely, and he answered by giving me an empty hoist, because it was not possible. He couldn't get to the enemy more closely at that point. It was funny. So the hoist actually added a lot of, which you can't really see. So that's why I'm describing it. You can't really see while we're playing this, but yeah, a lot of fun. Phoebe maneuvering into position, and this is within 8, so she decided to get a little closer, try to use her coronade as well. She has a broadside of 3, 1, 1, so 3 heavy, 1 light, 1 coronade. She's fired her initial broadside, so this broadside is just going to be a normal broadside within 10. Of course, now I'm also deciding to aim high. So aiming high, then you'll have another additional -2, and the ships are traveling at full sails. She's a veteran ship. We don't have a +1 to firing for the British like you would have in the original. We kept it for the Americans, so the Americans do have a +1, so they're 6 and below originally. The British are 5 and below originally. So aiming high, and with the ships going that fast, you would have 5 +2 for veteran, 7, and then subtracting 3 first from those 7 for the ships traveling fast, both of them, and then you subtract another 2 for aiming high. So I think I had 3 and below to hit. There's still some hits scored, nothing critical though, but I did a lot more damage here. She was slowly wearing down towards her point where she would lose half her guns. And that, in the case of Essex, following the rules, would be, instead of having 4 coronades and 1 light gun, she would have 2 coronades and 1 light gun. So also, as you might notice, we took something from B2 quarters and added to our rules for playing Black Seas, and that's we're actually turning the ships at the front. So instead of putting that turn marker, the 45 or 30 degree turn marker at the back of the ship, we're actually putting it at the front of the ship, so the ship is more turning. We might be wrong, but we felt like that is almost a better way to turn the ships, because they're being pushed around by the sail and the rudder. So and it worked out pretty nice for this small battle. We'll see how it turns out on a bigger battle. Here Essex is responding, firing on the Phoebe, and she scored a decent hit here, also with a critical. The critical wasn't really bad, but was a quarterdeck hit as well, I think, if I remember it right. I should really write these things up. I didn't this time. We were too busy playing. I almost forgot taking pictures as well, and moving the camera and all that. We're going to change that for the next one. Actually, the next battle is going to be a B2 quarters, and it's going to be finally the Shannon against the Chesapeake, and we're going to actually do that with my friend Björn. He's going to be playing Shannon. He has homework. He's going to read up on how the Shannon reacted in the battle, and of course then Marcus is going to read up on how the Chesapeake acted. So they're going to be trying to play it out a little bit like the real thing. We'll see if it's going to play out like a historical encounter. It's going to be a very short deal, but we'll find out. And I'm going to just do the full YouTuber thing for that one, and I'm going to be focusing on the cameras. So if we get some better footage of that duel than normally, because I get so involved with these games that I end up forgetting that I need to change the angles of the cameras and so on and take photos. I hope you like it anyway. So basically Phoebe is playing catch up, also the Cherub. There was something that happened because they were both trying to crack on, both the Cherub and the Essex tried to crack on, and both failed with it, meaning that they had, from the point that they decided to crack on, they had -2 to the movement for the round, letting Phoebe catch up pretty well. I think it was at this point that happened, and here Phoebe is firing a close range broadside, so that is double damage. This rules, Blacksmith's rules, when you're firing below 3 inches, you'll have double damage done. I also was considering trying to board, but then we figured out that, of course, we're traveling at full sails, both ships, and we decided that both ships needs to be not traveling at full sails for you to be able to board. So as long as he kept up his full speed, there was no chance for me to board her. And of course, Essex, having +2 on boarding actions, is a very hard ship to board in the first place. But I was still trying to aim high with the Phoebe, trying to dismast her, also to let the Cherub catch up, basically to get the Cherub in range, and then to see if we together could take her out. The Essex Junior ended up doing more or less, I mean, historically it didn't really get involved in the fight, and it didn't either at this one, but the difference is that it actually made it off the board on turn 7. So it didn't fire a single shot, wasn't fired upon either, it just moved it off the board. So one of the 2 American or US ships managed to make it off with the noose, which is different than the historical encounter where she ended up being captured by the British and being used as a cartel to ship the prisoners and exchange them. So here you see she's way ahead, the little brig there. And that's the model of Fair American, as I mentioned earlier. I'm quite pleased with how they turn out these days, my ships. Having a lot of fun making these models for myself and others. And there you have the box where we're rolling our dice in. It's been working out really good as well. It's actually my wife who made it. She painted in a little compass in the middle. Very nice of her. And we've had a lot of use of it. And there's also our laser measuring device. We didn't end up having to use it much for this battle, being so few ships. But when there's a lot of ships in a battle and they're all firing, then it can be very useful to have a way to measure, see if your broadside bears or not. So the Essex here, I think it was actually this turn where she was trying to crack on and failed. Yeah, it was. It wasn't the turn before, it was this turn. She lost a lot of speed, and that allowed the Phoebe to crack up and come up and give her another broadside. She did end up firing, and it wasn't very effective. It wasn't a very effective broadside on the Phoebe again. The Phoebe was quite lucky with those broadsides not scoring more damage. Measuring devices. We are going to get a see-through, a clear inch measuring device as well. That's something we also learned playing B2 quarters, because we have these centimeter rulers when we're playing B2 quarters, and they're see-through, and that makes it so much easier to measure when you're going to fire different ships, because you can just keep the measuring device above the ships without touching them, and then you can see if you're going to hit or not anyway. So that's something we learned, and we're going to order some clear plastic measuring devices for Black Seas. Weather gauge was with the ships that are furthest to the north. Wind just kept on blowing, didn't change again. So for the rest of the battle, it was just blowing to the south from the north, and the ships here are traveling west roughly. Well, more to the, doesn't show very well here, but more to the southwest actually. But so consulting our cards here, or our quick reference sheets. And originally, I'm going to give credit again where credit is due. This was what sparked our foray into making our own house rules, was this quick reference sheets by Modeler Phil, which he shared on the Black Seas group on Facebook. So you can find them there, his version of them. And there is some changes to the rule already in those. I think I've also posted our version of them. Maybe I'll do that later. I think I did at some point, but because we changed them some more. I'm going to release a complete version when we've played through our campaign. That's the whole point. I do too much stuff, so one thing at a time. But we are going to be releasing that campaign when we've finished it, and then you guys can use it all if you like. I also released our changes to the ship stats and the initial ship types and so on a couple of times to different people. So if you want to have that, just PM me and I can send it over. You need to be using the Battlescribe app or the desktop app or for it to work, and you need to add it as an index file to that. But using that, then you can use our updated ship rules. Of course, there's not all the different types of firing and the advanced sailing, but there is the different ship types and the costs. And so here Phoebe is again moving up, this time using her other broadside and firing at close range and doing a lot of damage. And at this point Essex is actually down to just 5. After the muskets fired, just 5 ship points. So she has to test for striking every time she activates from this point on, unless she managed to repair up to her limit that was 15. So also Phoebe maneuvering after firing, maneuvering ahead. This is, I don't know, a little gaming the rules. I don't know, but she moved ahead and got in the way physically of the Essex. Another way to try to let the Cherub catch up, as it's still trying to accelerate up at the back there. Yeah, and this is close to the end, since at the beginning of the turn, when the Essex was going to move of turn 8, she failed her skill test, so she ended up striking her colors, which she did historically as well. But only difference here is that Essex Junior made it off the board, and maybe Cherub played a smaller role than she did in the historical battle. But otherwise it played out pretty much like the historical battle. We had a lot of fun playing, as usual. And yeah, but as we're playing, you don't see it. Maybe in the next one, since I'll be taking more time to film, you'll see more of us, interacting and so on. I was thinking that could be fun for you guys. And this is the final situation. So she almost made it off the board. You see, if some things would have turned out a little bit different, the Essex could have made it off the board, and that was Marcus's plan, who played the US ship. So if he succeeded with cracking on, which would have been possible since he's a veteran ship, maybe then things would have turned out different, and Phoebe would have caught up and managed to get her almost striking. Also, I was aiming high, but I didn't manage to damage anything like a rudder or a mast, so that I was hoping. But I was trying still to aim high. So this concludes this battle report. I hope you enjoyed it, and our next battle is in a week, a little bit more, and I'll be making my report from that, and that's going to be B2 quarters, Shannon versus the US Chesapeake, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And this was also a lot of fun. Black Seas rule set allows you to have a little bit quicker games, and we like both systems at this point, both B3 quarters and Black Seas, and we'll probably be continuing playing both. I've had some other rule system suggested to me that I will take a look at. It's called Mad for War, so more for ships from the 17th century, but I, all the time being Swedish, think about having some sea battles between Swedish and Danish ships from the 16th or 17th century. It would be a lot of fun. So probably I will be taking a look at those rules as well and have something done on my channel for that. So that's all, and don't forget, if you haven't subscribed and you like the content, go ahead and subscribe and like the video, comment below any questions, and I just will keep on making this stuff. I really enjoy it.